Hi, my name is Rick Bayless. I'm with A Healthier Home, and it's my honor to be here to host and facilitate this meeting today on another healthiness topic, exposure, the truth about your health and EMF radiation. Thanks for joining me, and I want to let you know there's more folks on the team here. Is myself, owner of A Healthier Home, but also here is Scott Parker.
Hi.
That was Scott. If you saw him wave, that's Scott waving.
That's me waving. Yeah.
That's him waving. He's also one of our experienced and well certified and well accomplished house examiners and consultants. Bridget Miller is here.
Hello.
That's her said hello, and she waved. Another well experienced and well certified and qualified house examiner and counselor. I have to say both of these. This is about us examining the patient, the house as patient, to confirm how things are, and then it's about coaching you through and guiding you through what we're seeing there on the resolution of issue and or preventing issues from showing up. So Scott and Bridget, myself, all three are examiners and guides and coaches. And if sometimes you need a shoulder to cry on, well, give us a call and we could spend some time together. We might want to cry on your shoulder sometime too. Anyway, thanks for coming here. How to get the most out of this presentation? Well, put your questions in the chat bar because Scott and Bridget will be looking through the chat bar to they might have a chance to answer some of your questions right away in the moment. Or as we get to the general question and answer part of it, we might come back to the question you posed and speak to the whole group on the question that you posed. So use the chat bar, enter your question there, get a pen and paper and jot down some of your thoughts because they might come to you later on. Just to pose something a certain way. Listen out for more ways to engage. That's coming up later on through the ongoing messages you'll be receiving from us after this session. Like, for example, you'll be getting an email after this session of once this recording is put together, we'll email you the link to the recording if you wanted to look through this again or share this with someone else. So look for those other messages about this after this meeting, in a few days after this meeting. And stay tuned to some practical steps you can start yourself today to begin to lower your exposure to EMF. Let's go to the next slide. What qualifies me to talk about EMF radiation? Well, it's a lot of things. There have been a number of realms of house environmental health. And you get to read through some of that at another time. It's just, I've been in this for immersed in this realm for over 40 years. So you kind of pick up a few things along the way, as well as understanding and insights. So we'll be sharing some of that with you on this front, on the front of EMF. Specifically EMF credentialing, I'm a Building Biology Institute certified BBEC, Building Biology Environmental Consultant, where through the building biology, I've been through their EMF program to some degree. Bridget has too, and Scott has too. There's a more in-depth EMF degree or certification you can receive through Building Biology Institute. And we can connect with folks if you need to do a deeper dive into EMF. We can connect with folks who can take you even deeper and even deeper and even deeper if you want to go that deep. But what Bridget and Scott and I are doing is, let's at least start with the basics that everybody ought to be covering anyway. Be sure at least you got the basics. We're going to go through some of the basics here today. What is EMF radiation? Well, it's invisible energy and radiation. Anything that's energized radiates. Anything that moves even radiates. The Earth spins, and you got a magnetic field. You got the tectonic plates move, and you get geopathic stress lines. A light bulb is on, you get light wavelengths from that. The sun is out, and you get light wavelengths from the sun, as well as other energy wavelengths from the sun. We turn on electronics, and they begin to emit. Some of the energy is used for useful purpose, but some of the energy is really kind of wasted energy, sometimes possibly even harmful energy. So we live in an energized realm, and even more so with modern electronics, even more so than ever before. Matter of fact, there's a if you look at that slide, shows the that wavy line from left to right is kind of an interpretation or depiction of some kinds of energy. You see long wave energy, and as you can see, that's probably at the left side of the picture. Long energy waves, kind of like the waves, ocean waves. Or long waves. But then you get to the right side, a short wave. Well, that's high energy stuff like lasers and radioactive, and that realm of ionizing radiation. That stuff is certainly dangerous. And to tell you, don't look at the sun. The X-ray technicians shield themselves behind LED screens rather than expose themselves to X-rays all day long. So some of this is definitely nasty stuff that we've been aware of for quite a while, since we invented it over 100 years ago or so, or more. But on the left side of this is stuff that's just part of nature on Earth. So there's all kinds of energy. You see some devices down below that are in those realms of what kind of are they, non-ionizing or ionizing. You can see some of our familiar devices we have nowadays. Natural versus artificial. Natural EMFs, Earth magnetic field and atmospheric electric fields, non-polarizing and benign. But again, there's some dangers in that too. Don't look at the sun without the proper polarized lenses, for example. Don't stay out in the full sun for too long, otherwise you risk terrible sunburn or worse, skin damage. And artificial EMFs. Boy, do we have plenty of that nowadays amongst our emanating from our devices. So why care about EMFs in your home? Well, because of that increasing prevalence of wireless and electrical devices. Because questions have been raised about health concerns for over maybe up to 25 years or so, at least. Some folks have begun looking into this and realizing maybe there's some stuff that's not so good for bodily health and wellness. Maybe there are adverse impacts on body systems and cells. And there's been quite some studies been done on this, and we can direct you to a place where there's links to those studies you can begin to read for yourself. There's a lot of information that's being gathered and realized. The fact that we ought to be mindful that there can very well be some health concerns from excessive exposure to some of these wavelengths of EMF. Rather than just ignore that, just like back then in the day. Smoke cigarettes. What's the harm? Well, we know a little bit more about that than we kind of realized a while ago. So what the importance here then is, since we don't have the fullest of answers on the health front, we do know there's a lot of it around. The common sense thing to do is, it's reasonable to take easy measures at least to reduce your excessive exposure to EMF. That if it's easy to cut your exposure, let's do the easy stuff, rather than not even start any at all and find out 10 more years from now, gee, we wish we'd been doing something differently 10 years ago. Start with the simple things now. Bridget has an example of a homeowner situation that she was involved in, helping a client with an issue that they were having with EMF. Bridget Miller, she's one of our examiners.
Yeah, so one of the more interesting things that I have seen so far with all of the things that are surrounding us these days was I was doing an inspection and we were checking the office area of a client's house, and I was showing him the different meters, and the meter you see there is detecting wireless signals. So from cell phones and laptops and all of the wireless Bluetooth type things. And I pulls out his hearing aid and asked me to check that. And sure enough, it had a Bluetooth wireless signal. It was pretty strong. And he had originally called us because he was having an increase in his tremors. He had really bad, shakes in his arms and even his legs and things like that. And those had gotten worse over the last 6 months. And so he took he took out his hearing aid, he checked that, and he was, kind of surprised. And I said, well, you can call your doctor and ask them if they can turn off the wireless portion of the hearing aids, because it's basically just so he could control things through an app on his phone. And he called me a couple of days later and said that he had been able to go and get that. Basically, they showed him how he could turn it on and off. And he turned off that wireless signal, and we rechecked his hearing aids, and they were not emitting whenever it was off. And within a few days of doing that, he called me and told me he had a huge improvement on his tremors. So that really stuck with me, that, and then we see these, and not only just hearing aids, but so many, you see the wireless headphones. And they're also putting wireless signals in so many medical devices now. And so this was just, a good example showing that, well, they didn't even tell him that there was an option to turn this signal off. And it was a fairly simple thing to do. So he's, that's just a success story in a way of, some of these things are very simple to correct and reduce
Bridget,
your exposure.
If he just turned off the Bluetooth feature, but he could still hear just as
he could still use the hearing aid. The Bluetooth was just so he could make adjustments on his phone with volume and things like that. So probably maybe a little more inconvenient. Like he would just have to set it at one level and leave it there unless he, so he could turn it on and off. I think
it's okay to use the Bluetooth. If he did want to use that app to adjust it, he could turn it on temporarily, make his adjustment, turn the Bluetooth back off.
Yes. Yeah.
So, and that's minimizing his exposure. He did not need the Bluetooth on and exposure
24/7. Yeah.
He just needed it for a few moments when he makes his adjustments.
Yeah.
And with, if he made that simple behavioral change, his tremor situation virtually disappeared.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Simple. That's what we're talking about. Simple stuff like that of these exposures to EMF that we never had before, but have now. It can be causing some trouble for you, and there's easy ways to make some progress on some of these fronts. Let's at least start with the obvious, easy stuff. Especially start with things that are, if you're having tremors or, or quality of sleep or something really disruptive, all the more reason to get on to finding out what it is that's adverse here in my realm here, and how do I make an adjustment to reduce my exposure. That was a good example, Bridget. Thanks for that. Magnetic versus electric fields. There's lots of fields out there, but a couple of them magnetic fields are out there. Things like from a power lines can emit magnetic fields. You'd be surprised how many of our other electronic devices might emit magnetic fields. I don't know, there's too long of a list for me to even remember right now. But with the good news about some of this stuff is that as you step away from or distance yourself from the source of emission, their intensity reduces with distance. So if you step further back, you're getting a lesser that wavelength level is reduced. Further back, it's reduced. That's what maybe why you don't sit right on the emitting device. You just step back a little bit or move it across the room a bit if you can. Some people say they really don't want to buy a house right under the high tension, the power lines. Nice if the power lines are further across the neighborhood or over the hill or something like that. So distance makes a difference here. Radio frequency, we're bringing that right to us. How many folks all have our cell phones right with us? My phone is in off mode right now, so it is not emitting at all because I totally powered it off. And I'm not picking up EMF or radio frequency from it all because it's off. I don't need to be using it right now. So right now, whoever else is joined us, if you wish to further reduce your exposure right now, you could power down your cell phones because you're busy with something else right now. The call will wait, unless you're waiting for a call. leave it enabled. Put it across the room. But there's a radio frequency that's out there from wireless phones and Bluetooth. They can penetrate walls and be absorbed by the body. Magnetic and electric fields are out there. Symptoms thought to be impacted by high EMF exposure. Some people are for sure have experienced, like Bridget's client experienced tremors, neurological situation. Some people experience fatigue. Some people headaches. Some people dizziness, and they can tell the difference. When I made this change, I'm sleeping better. I don't feel as I have my energy level is higher, is better. Sleep disturbances, insomnia, difficulty concentrating, anxiety, irritability, mood swings, skin tingling, burning sensations, potential links to chronic health conditions also. So there's studies out there showing some associations between EMF and some common maladies and symptoms that we're having. And if you're having a symptom that you said or condition that seems hard to shake, it's worth exploring to this realm of EMF to see if that's playing at all into that symptom you're having, or would make a condition that your body's battling a bit more of a challenge to heal itself and deal with that other condition. Look at EMFs as a possible contributor or culprit. Some folks, they're more sensitive to electromagnetic hypersensitivity. If there's a group of folks there who knows that this is here, they can actually feel it when they get near to those emitting wavelengths. They're the they're the EMF canaries in the coal mine. So I don't need to tell those folks that there's a reality. They could feel it, and they're already taking measures to reduce their exposure. They have to, because it'll be quite disruptive to health and wellness. One culprit, we might as well start with this one: cell phones. Mostly because it is like everywhere, and it is on us and all of our friends and neighbors and everybody all the time. And it's a pretty big emitter of radio frequency and Bluetooth, including Bluetooth. Carrying those close to the body, holding them closer to you is more of a concern than when it's just 4 feet across from you on the other side of the table. It doesn't have to be right on top of you to be able to speak on it. If it's in speaker mode, you can still hear the alarm when it goes off. It doesn't have to be right on top of you. And that's one realm of things you could begin with to reduce exposure is your relationship with your cell phone. Cell phone, we love you, but give me some space, cell phone. Step back a foot or two or three. Couple number 2 is white noise machines, other smart devices in houses, smart thermostats, smart refrigerators, smart other kitchen appliances, smart hearing aids, things using Bluetooth, devices that are electronic devices that are trying to communicate with each other, not through a wire anymore. Back in the olden days, it was still this century, but those were the olden days, where this device and that device, they were connected by a cable. And those two devices communicated to each other through that cable. Now that we took the cable away, how is device A and device B going to communicate with each other? I know. This one can put out a high energy, high frequency radio signal. and that could provide a high energy radiant signal, and they can communicate with each other through the space between the two. Well, here we are sitting right in between those two things, getting zapped from both directions. So those smart devices that are communicating without wires, well, that's yet another layer, a set of EMF emissions going on in your house or office where those devices are. Another case study here of is this something for we could speak to someone of melatonin decrease and insomnia. Well, that word right there depicted there is a baby monitor, and it's okay if you have to have the baby monitor. Probably best to not have it right in the crib with the baby's body and nerves and cells. But I was in a case where the room that had the highest amount of most intense radio frequency was the baby's crib room. And in that room was a baby monitor similar to that. And it sat on a tabletop on the countertop across the room. But it was tracking motion. So as I walked across the room, that little bulb part turned its eye to me. I could hear it tracking me as I walked across the room. That was creepy enough to be being watched by that device. But the minute we turned that device off, the EMF levels, the radio frequency levels in the whole house went down many measures, and the room went down quite significantly in that room. Maybe other ways to monitor the status of the baby other than high emitting radio frequency device right in the room. But there's an opportunity there. Some questions being raised about the development of ADHD with EMF exposure. Another is dirty electricity. Electricity flow through the wiring in a house is not smooth sailing. It's erratic, it's rough, and there's waste energy that comes off those wires, even when you're using something in that circuit or not. So that's in the space in the room with us too. Those, I guess you could say, static electricity. You might liken it to that. But all these electric wavelengths are trying to find a way back to ground, electrical energy. And your liquid body is a wonderful ground. So a lot of these things are drawn toward your body, which means that your cells are exposed to higher amounts of energy that they might not be comfortable with or happy with. Damaging, maybe. Discomfort, at least. Of no concern at all, there's cause for concern. We should be lowering our exposure, at least to the easy things. Some types of light bulbs emit more magnetic and electric fields than others. So be mindful of the kind of bulbs you have throughout the house. You could meter each of those, get a meter and see what those are emitting, each of your bulbs, and maybe move to bulbs that emit a lesser amount of EMFs, or don't. Sometimes I go into rooms where there are 6 different can lights in one room in the ceiling overhead, and you flip the switch and all 6 of them come on, where maybe only 3 of them had to be on. So you can elect to depower 3 of those and only have 3 come on instead of having all 6 on. So even unscrewing a light bulb and an outlet that you don't have to have in the bathroom, there are 5 light bulbs over top of the vanity. I unscrewed 2 of them. I thought 3 was enough. Matter of fact, in my room, I had 1 of them on, and my wife came in and screwed 2 of them back in. But having 3 bulbs emitting is better than having 5 bulbs emitting. So take advantage of doing easy things to reduce your exposure to energy consumption as well as exposure to EMF production. Scott comes across this often enough too, as he examines houses. In every house, we do make it a point to bring it up, this aspect of house pollution to a homeowner. And does Scott have an example of an EMF situation he's come across and shared with the homeowner at the house?
Yeah, well, we test this in most houses. Clean electricity is at best is a smooth 60 hertz sine wave. And then you get noise or static in that, it becomes more jagged. And so that can be disruptive. Um, so we've got these these gadgets, and we plug in, and it'll tell us, give us a number and a noise about what the reading is on the circuit. And this house isn't so bad. I'm running about below 60, but more than half of the time we'll see numbers up into the 1,000 or 2,000. But if it's down below 200 or 100, that's pretty good. But we'd rather see it down to 50 or so. Fortunately, there's an easy solution, and that dirty energy can come, in from the street with that static. It can, it depends on what you've got plugged in. There are whole house filters that you can use, but these are, quite simple and inexpensive. Under $40 is a green wave filter, and then if I plug that in, then the number drops off dramatically. So now I'm below 20, and so that's always a good demonstration in the field.
Hey,
But
show us what you plugged it into. What
I
you
just got it
into?
plugged into an extension cord, and so and so these are about $140 for the meter, and the filters are under $40. So so very simple to test and put in a filter. And I would say start with one in the bedroom, and try one on each circuit. They sell them in multiple packs, but yeah, that can bring down the numbers quite dramatically, and it's simple to do.
And what matters most is the room that you're sitting in at that time. So if the house is vacant otherwise, and you're in this one room, have that plugged in an outlet, in any outlet in that circuit in the room, to tame the electrical circuitry in that one room to lower EMI levels. And as you go to another room for a while, you take that device with you and plug it in the outlet in that other room. Because once you leave the room you were in, what's more important is the EMI production in the room that you're sitting in. So feel free to take that white unit with you from room to room, or if you go to a meeting room or something like that, you go to someone else's house, or you go to a hotel room or something. Take advantage of the portability of that little white tool that you could put in the room that you're, wherever you go, whatever you're in. Just remember to take it out of the hotel room before you leave before you check out. Take it with you. Yeah, so you could do something right away about dirty electricity to reduce your exposure to that. Another culprit here is our computers, the Wi-Fi routers, the smart devices, your laptop, your keyboard. There's things you do there in terms of your closeness to those, your distance from those, how often they're on. Does it really have to be on 24/7, or can it be totally depowered for quite some period of time, even for just a half an hour or an hour? Any lesser exposure is a step in the right direction, even if it's just 30 minutes to an hour. Better yet, all night long when you're sleeping. That's time for your body to repair, recover, restore, and regenerate, and let your brain, with its alpha waves, communicate most effectively with the rest of the cells and systems of the body without interference from other energy fields, possibly interfering with the quality of sleep. So that's a wonderful time to tell all these other devices, go to sleep for the night, because my body's gonna sleep. Yeah, you could take that green wave filter and plug it into your an outlet in the bedroom, across the room though, because there might be some emission of energy from that white filter itself. But all it has to be is in any, a room circuit goes around the room, and there's an outlet here and an outlet there and an outlet here. There's several outlets off that one circuit. Put it in the outlet that's across the room from the bed, and it'll tame that room, and you'll have the EMI output from the circuitry in that room. You might have some other health challenge, a diagnosis from a doctor that where you may be more affected by EMF exposure. Some questions are out there about anxiety and depression, or about Alzheimer's or Parkinson's or multiple sclerosis, some hormonal imbalances or immune dysfunction, sleep disorders, for sure, and chronic fatigue syndrome. You might be surprised to find that if you've been in the midst of health challenges, as any of those are, if that's your reality and you're working your way to manage life with those conditions, you might be surprised that one alteration in your exposure to EMF might make some difference for you, a positive difference. Sometimes you can feel it in the moment. Sometimes you feel it after a period of time. We might not get the total answer to this for quite some time to come. So in a case like that, the person whose tremors pretty much ceased the moment he turned off the Bluetooth as an earpiece, that's an easy answer. Sometimes you don't get an answer that's so obvious. You might not feel it in the moment. But if you have some of conditions such as these, neurological, especially neurological related, and ultimately everything in the body is tied to the body's neurological system, it makes sense to reduce EMF exposure, as well as all the other pollutants that might be in excess around you, to be easier on your body while it's doing work to try to maintain health, heal itself, maintain health and wellness. Don't let EMF be a pollutant that's in excess, because there's plenty of excess of EMF pollution nowadays, especially if you have a health challenge. Look into how EMF might be impacting your space. There's the case study that matters most is your case, your situation, or that of your family members. Something that's part of your reality. And it is important to, we do want to talk with you about that if we can be of help in some way. So feel free that afterwards you can sign up for our 20-minute consult for $97. Actually, we'll actually be speaking with you for more than 20 minutes. But let's talk about your situation. Ask us your questions, because a downside to the webinar here is we're just speaking in generalities. What really matters is to speak to your specific situation and needs. And that's what our service is all about. It's Scott, Bridget, and me. We go to people's homes and discuss their questions and their situations and guide them into measures that can help them better improve their own health and wellness. One person I spoke to earlier today, they bought almost every air device you could possibly purchase: air cleaners, air filters, ionizers, dehumidifiers, humidifiers, ventilators. They put in the tune of many thousands of dollars on so many devices. They're plugging them all in and running them and trying to control house environmental conditions. He says, I still don't feel well. Something's not right here. So rather than invest too many dollars down pathways that might be of help, our job, Bridget, Scott, and me, is to get your efforts targeted into something that's either for sure or most likely going to make the biggest difference in your life and your health, without experimenting and killing your pocketbook and not getting anywhere. So it's worth a conversation with us, investing in a conversation with us to get you more on target for health's sake, house sake and for dollar's sake too. Some steps that you can take right now, even you can begin to experiment with this evening. As we mentioned some of these already, is limiting your unnecessary wireless device use. Like I said, right now, and through this whole conversation, my phone has been powered off. And I moved it across the table too. I slid it to the far side of the table. And you could do that too. Or at least deactivating the Bluetooth mode, or the have it on airplane mode, things like that. So I'll use my phone for my as an alarm clock, but I'll have it across the room, Bluetooth off and airplane mode on. And it makes a big difference in the room of lowering my RF exposure. So limited the unnecessary wireless device use, or how often it's powered, what things are powered or enabled. Using wired connections. Again, how we used to, our keyboard and our laptop, they were connected to each other and with a cable. Nowadays, there are wireless keyboards communicating with the modem and the screen. All three of those devices communicating wirelessly. Get back to hardwiring those things together if you have the space available to put the wires out of the way. You could significantly reduce radio frequency and Bluetooth signaling in the house if you did that. Keeping your distance from EMF sources. You've already heard of, hey, when you turn the microwave on, boy, do we get both high electric and magnetic fields. And we all know that, hey, you don't stand right at the microwave while it's on and look in the microwave and watch your stuff the plate rotating inside the microwave. If you are using it, stand back away from it. So don't have your cutting board right there at the counter and right in front of the microwave. The cutting board in your workstation should be some distance from the microwave. 2 feet, 3 feet, 4 feet, 5 feet. Some folks have to get all the way across the other side of the kitchen to make any significant reduction in magnetic and electric field emission from the microwave when it's on. But some distance is better than it being right on top of you. Shielding solutions, there are devices you could put to reduce how much emission is coming from your modem or from a wireless device. You can experiment with shielding fabrics. I think Bridget put a wire trash basket, I think, over top of her modem, and it reduced its emissions a bit. Not enough to reduce the effectiveness of the wireless signal for user computer, but enough to lower the emissions from that device throughout the house, from the modem throughout the house, by a measure of tenfold at least, I think.
It was about 90% reduction. It 90%. Went from 3 million down to 300,000 right at the modem.
Yeah. So the point is that does that modem really need to be putting out this much power so much to where you could even go out in the backyard and still get a strong signal? We don't need to be that strong to be so powerful it reaches all the way out to the backyard. We just need to be strong enough and powerful enough in the house. So if they had a button to throttle down their intensity level, would be nice. But if they didn't, you could put some type of metal mesh over top of it. What is it doing? Is just reflecting back in some of what it would have emitted out into the area. So Bridget did that to reduce her exposure. And then I think, don't you also sometimes you just unplug the darn thing? And I want my time. It's not communication time with the rest of the world. I'm going to unplug it altogether. Well, so you have to take a balanced approach to this here. It's important to look across the quite array of powered devices in your realm, starting with what's there in the neighborhood and on the property and inside the house, inside the whole building, and ultimately inside each room, and ultimately nearby where your body is. And we'll, in that search and discovery, we'll find quite a number of ways that you could take without too much trouble at all to begin to reduce your exposure to EMFs. They're unavoidable. We're not talking about but going back to the Stone Age and not having electronic devices at all. We're not going there. We don't have to. But also, with the same token, we don't have to expose ourselves to as much electromagnetic energy as we could possibly find out there on the shelves and at the stores. We look for any, an old adage, anything in moderation, nothing to excess. And right now, we're sitting in a situation where probably everybody has excess of electronic energy around them right now. It's time for us to take a little measure, half a step, or even a full step back from that, the excess of that. So the key is awareness of what's emitting and moderating where you can. That's what we wanted to, mostly at this webinar, we wanted to introduce people to EMF. There's a lot of houses we go to, and Bridget, Scott, or I say EMF, and the occupant says, EM what? And it's time to at least know what EMF is and understand that it's a reality and it's in your space. And we wanted to point out some of the easy places for you to start. The energy wavelengths in your own rooms, your bedrooms especially, where you are supposed to restore, recover, and heal through the night. Your workspace, the entertainment space, the child's room, the baby's room especially. Don't forget about your pets. Who knows? Maybe the pets might not, the dog might not bark all night. if there was some, who knows? That's just a wild thought. But we're not the only ones affected by excesses of electrical and energy wavelengths, electrical, Bluetooth, and beyond. Do we have some time left together? About 20 minutes here, maybe a little bit less than that. Is there a question maybe that somebody put in the chat bar that kind of struck you, Bridget or Scott?
Well, I think we've answered a lot of things. I'd like to point out that the easy and free experiment is just turn it off and see if you feel better, see if you sleep better. You can, turn off all your devices, unplug them, and even just turn off that circuit breaker to the bedroom.
Well, there's that difference.
And see if that helps you sleep better.
Be sure we're clear. There's a big difference between turn off and unplug. So anything is still plugged in an outlet, it is still energized and it is still emitting. So I know, Scott, our first comes to mind to turn off, but really the most appropriate term is to depower. Either unplug it from the wall, or like Scott said, cut the circuit to the whole room.
Or I like to put things on a power strip and just turn the whole power strip off.
Yeah, what I would do is I unplug the whole power strip.
Yeah.
Instead of unplugging all of them, I unplug the power strip from the wall, and then each of those wires and devices are depowered once, rather than trying to unplug them. So it's unplugging rather than turning off that makes the biggest difference.
You can even have different circuits on a timer, so they switch off at night, or have them so you can remotely turn them off when you don't need them.
Yeah, lots you could do. Yeah, with devices that you're already familiar with using, plugging, unplugging, on, off. But if you need to get to something that's more automatic, and instead of, are you telling me that before I go to sleep every night, I'm about to lay down, and I get on my covers and I go, dang, I forgot to go to the panel box in the garage and flip the breaker to the bedroom to depower the bedroom. Darn it. So you get back out of the bed, you have to put your slippers on, you get your robe on, you walk to the garage, you get your flashlight with you. That's one way to do it. But like Scott said, there's an easier way. An electrician can install a wall switch across the room on a wall plated switch, where you can flip that switch and it depowers all the circuitry in the master bedroom. There's an easier way to do it than having to trudge to the garage panel box and back. When you're about to go to bed, there's ways to do it. But like Scott said, experiment just for now before you hire an electrician. Experiment with. Cut the breaker to the, go to the paddle box and turn off the breaker to the master bedroom and see if you sleep better that night. Maybe do it for 2 or 3 nights in a row and see after the trend is, after a few nights, I think I feel a difference. Now, if that's the case, you say, well, maybe it wasn't. Then you flip it back on, try to sleep again. I feel buzzy again since I have it on. These next nights after I had it on, off for a few nights, on a few nights, I'm not sleeping as well again. Once you could use your body as an indicator that you've made some progress. And once you know it's real progress, then maybe you buy something or hire somebody to make an adjustment. But go ahead and start to, like Scott said, experiment with in easy ways. Starting this evening if you want to. Anything else struck you in the chat bar, Bridget or Scott?
Well, I think we've answered a lot of them, but a couple of people were asking about how do they block their neighbor's router Wi-Fi, and how much shielding is possible for that. And most of those aren't really cheap and easy, but it is possible.
Yeah, they do have EMF shielding paints, and someone's knowledgeable and skilled in it has to apply that properly and has to ground that properly. The easiest answer, if you can, some houses, some houses are close enough to where you could even see outside the house that we were getting emission from the neighbor's house, not yours, but like where your bedroom maybe is in the same side of the house as your neighbor's house. If there's some other area, a guest bedroom on the other side of your house, try sleeping in that room for a night to see if there's a difference. Like distancing yourself from your neighbor's highest emission and using a lot of the other devices and materials in your house as shields, sort of. We said it pretty commonly where the master bedroom might be abuzz with EMF, maybe from the neighbor's emissions, and you go to the guest room at the other end of the house, and the emissions are significantly less. So try sleeping in another room, especially if you have a radio frequency meter, and you can find that room. Do you have the radio frequency meter handy, Scott or Bridget?
A tri-field meter, yeah.
Or the RF, or the what about the
yeah,
how about that?
The radio is this noisy thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So you can take that and walk from room to room and find, here's a room where I have significantly lower amounts of radio frequency. Try sleeping in that room for a night, or a few. See if it makes a difference on quality of sleep or how you feel. There are some, you want to hold up some devices that people should be aware of. So Scott already held up the radio frequency meter.
That's just this one.
You should become familiar with those. Those can help you an awful lot. Begin to hunt this down yourself, and confirm when you did what you just did made a significant difference. You'll see that on the meter. So just like back in the day, everyone who has a car should have a tire pressure gauge with them. Well, nowadays you should maybe consider having a radio frequency sensor like Scott just held up.
This is a tri-field meter, which will measure magnetic, electric fields, and radio.
The magnetic fields, electric fields with a tri-field meter.
Yeah.
A number of our clients have those and use those. Because how can you tell if the thing you just did made a difference or not? Because you can't see the energy fields. Most of us can't feel it. When the meter tells you there's what you just did, there's a significant reduction in magnetic fields from what you just did. Keep doing that. Keep doing something that's lessened your level of exposure. And then there was another meter you had before, Scott. Was it the EMI meter?
Yeah, that's this one here.
Yeah, to tell you how dirty electricity is in that one circuit, that one electrical circuit in the house. And he also held up the line filter they could use, that white line filter.
Right.
So with those sets of 4 things, there's a lot you could do right away to reduce your exposure to EMF. It's a start. There's a lot more to it than that, but this is not a bad place for the folks who haven't looked into this at all. It's an easy place for them to start. Very low cost and very doable. Any other question or comment in the chat bar that?
Well, there's a question. I started to type out the answer, but that they've got their smart meter is on the wall outside behind the bed, and so they're wondering how to reduce exposure besides moving the bed. But the first thing I would consider is moving the bed, and putting that on another wall. But yeah, there are ways to screen and shield that and ground out those energies. But the big takeaway on a lot of this, except for the radio waves, is try to get a little distance. That 3 or 4 feet, those fields drop off to near nothing. So you just need a little distance and have keep all your trouble equipment not next to the bed or not next to your desk or your sofa where you spend a lot of time.
I would add a caveat to that to say that that's true for the electric and magnetic fields, and the radio frequency also reduces, but it takes a greater distance to get away from the wireless signals. The magnetic fields drop off pretty quickly. And someone said to get Duke to remove the smart meter, but the issue with the meter is not necessarily the wireless signal, because that's being projected in the other direction. It's the magnetic field that comes off of the back of the meter itself. So really moving your bed is the best option. You can't shield magnetic fields easily or cheaply. That's the one type of EMF that's really difficult to shield.
But the smart meter is putting out basically a cell signal that they read it from. So otherwise it's more just electric and magnetic field. Yeah.
So when you do have that arrangement with the cell company, where I want to disable the wireless communication from mine. What is that you can sign up for with your power company to stop the that type of wireless communication from your meter? Isn't that?
What's that?
You can try to negotiate that with your power company. They don't like it, and they will resist that as much as they can.
Well, I mean, Duke will do it. They just you have to pay a monthly. First, you have to pay a upfront fee, I think, of $150, and then you pay like $15 a month or something for them to come out and manually read your meter.
And the downside to that is the only thing you've cut is the emission of radio frequency from that. You still didn't stop that magnetic field.
That's right, exactly. Why she said she couldn't really do that. So to maybe sleep with your head at the foot of the bed, switch your,
So in other words, that's a false sense of security, that conversation that's out there in the e-world of, hey, this is something we could take care of through the power company. No, that's just for the wireless communication so they don't have to come to your house and read the meter. You still have the electric field emissions from that meter, and you have the magnetic field emission. And this arrangement with the power company doesn't stop that at all. Those are the two emissions at all. You got to move the headboard, and the whole bed, ideally, off of that wall to the other side of the bedroom, for more reasons than just radio frequency. The moral of the story: move the bed away from that wall that the meter is on. That's the moral of the story, for lots of energy reasons. Any other questions here? We have a few minutes for maybe one more question.
Wondering if we can get a copy of the chats and answers. I'm not sure about that. We should have a link to the video.
Yeah,
The
so
answer is
Dawn.
yes to that. I can answer. I'm here.
Okay,
Dawn's
thank
here.
you.
This is Dawn. Dawn is a part of the A Healthier Home team. She helps us communicate with our through our web service here. She's our web service administrator and guide and coach. So she's the one to answer this question. Take it away, Dawn.
Oh, that was it. We can definitely get a chat. We can download the chat. So I will make sure that when I send out the replay, I will include it.
There you go.
We do have one question, Jim, says which EMFs seem to have more detrimental health impacts? I mean, my thing would probably be because of how quickly wireless has come into our lives, and we're seeing such an increase in cancer among young people, and and everyone really, overall total, and all kinds of behavioral issues and things like that. I think and I think because of the concentration of those signals that we're bringing into the house and we're exposed to, that seems to be the most harmful. But you could also have a home with a hidden high magnetic field that could be really bad for you too. So it kind of at the same time depends on your house and your living environment, which one's going to be more harmful for you. Because that answer might not be the same for everybody in this group. You may have one who's got a magnetic field hiding from a wiring error, but they have no or little or no wireless devices. Or you might have a house that has a ton of wireless devices and not in normal magnetic fields. So I think that can vary from house to house.
Or your issue might be a homeowner who had very smart electrical and communication setup throughout the house to minimize EMF. But her luck of the draw, she is over a geopathic stress line to where every time she crosses that center line going from one room to another, she feels a tingling in her hands that she can't stand it. So there's a whole lot more to EMF than just our electronic devices. Some of these things are even can be a bit more of a challenge to have to deal with. But to Bridget's point is the danger in this conversation is don't fall prey to the easy answer that fixes everybody's problem. That's not how it is out there. Is every house that Bridget, Scott, and I go to, there is always something going on unique to that house, unique to that owner and occupant. That's a different answer than the last person. The other person had a different answer that was a good answer for them. That didn't hold true in this person's case.
And as a reminder too, that there's multiple kinds of EMF. There's more than it. There's the electric fields, magnetic fields, the radio frequency, and dirty electricity. So there's different approaches to correcting those things. It's not so there's not a one product that will work for everything.
Yeah,
or one action.
The mix will have to be right, just like with a person's health situation. For this person, it's best for this bit and this kind of physical therapy with that kind of diet and this kind of a unique mix for that person's biology to better maintain wellness or heal from an ill. The doctor doesn't give the same answer to each of their patients. Patients are all unique and different. So that's what Bridget, Scott, and I deal with too. Every environment, house, systems, and occupant setup is another absolutely unique one that we've never come across before. Similarities, but not the same as the last one we just came from. So that's a precaution we'd like to put out there in terms of this pollutant too, EMF pollution. You really ought to get some guidance on where you stand rather than doing your best to guess your way through it. And that's what we're here for, to get you through this and get you on target and help you make success, to have better success more directly, ideally with lesser expenditure. Without spinning wheels or wasting dollars. Well, We probably ought to end this. I'm sure we're at the 5 o'clock. 5 o'clock. There we go. So respectful of everybody's time. Thanks for joining us here at this live call, Exposure, the truth about your health and EMF radiation. If you think you in your home throughout the Southern Appalachians or throughout the nation, but certainly the Southern Appalachians here, if your home might have health risks caused by EMF exposure or otherwise be unhealthy, give us a call. We can help. Contact us today. Respond to one of the emails you'll be receiving from us. You could sign up to receive our monthly newsletter, so you get some monthly tips on how to maintain and improve house health and wellness. So sign up for the monthly newsletter. Go to our website. There's some free resources you can download. The website, www.ahealthierhomenc.com. Thanks for joining us, and kind of keep in mind the mantra that we follow is a healthier home when it's your health that matters most. That's the point. Addressing your healthiness is ultimately what matters most to us. Thanks for joining us. Bye.